Hey, everybody. We're here with Joe Jensen. He's the president and founder of Fathers Anonymous. Joe, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, David. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be talking with you finally. You're a busy man. You're an elusive and busy man.
I got a lot of time and a lot of projects. I have 18 projects in a month. Um, so yeah, or 18 months in a project. I'm not sure. I'm
Yeah,
not sure which way it goes.
I do that. I do that often myself. Um, okay, well let's get started. I had a few questions, and I think this will just carry on like a normal conversation, and I think that would be best. And hopefully our videos moving forward are just casual conversations that guys can just take something from, like, oh, I didn't think of that, or um, yeah, I agree with that, I feel like that, I'm not alone, etc., so forth. So the first question I have is, who are you? Since I know you, but anyone that follows Fathers Anonymous may not know you, so who are you?
Well, I am a father. Um, I'm a son. Um, I'm a Marine veteran, and I'm an advocate for all people. Um, that's kind of, I guess, what I am. Um, who I am is, just your average everyday guy, just trying to get through life and do the best that I can and make the world a better place when I'm gone.
Cool. I appreciate that you picked up on the specifics of that question. I was in a college class for the one semester that I went to college. Um, the professor asked each person, like, who are you? And people took their turns, like, raising their hand, and they all said, like, things that weren't necessarily them. Like, it was like, you know I'm mom. It's like, okay, well, that's who you are to someone else. Who are you? Who are you to you? Um, so that's kind of cool that you picked up on that question.
Well,
Oh,
if we're being serious about who I am to me, then who I am to me is just I don't know, 10 or 12 people just all arguing and having difference of opinions and trying to procrastinate with everything that I can. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
I feel like I'm that same person, or at least the same 12 of them. Yeah, no, I don't know. I think that's interesting, and I think I'm really glad that you said it that way, because I just think that it's actually a relevant conversation to have, maybe for another day. But the thought is, um, for anyone that's listening, you who you are in the dark, who you are, when you're alone, when no one else is around, that's the core of who you are to you. And so, um, whatever your experience is that you're going through, it doesn't have to be what defines you. You get to decide that. So I think that that's a really important takeaway.
Well, and it took me a long time to figure that out, right? I mean, we grow up um, trying to live up to this idea that everybody else has for us or what society thinks we should be, um, and we have these preconceived notions through our upbringing of what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to be, and the trials of life have kind of shaped me to be who I am, my beliefs, my ideals. Um, I went in the Marines when I was 17 years old as this naive kid who thought the government could do no wrong, and would always look out for us. And, the Constitution says it and all this other stuff. And I find myself more and more, if I had hair, um, I would, uh, I would pull it out and have it flayed out and be like aliens, uh, not Alex Jones type alien, conspiracies, but just like believing that those ideas we're taught as children to follow the social norm and what is, conveyed upon us by our support system as we grow up, just kind of, you have to analyze that, and you have to really take a good hard look at what you're being told, and in doing so that'll help shape who you are. If you are incapable of doing that or unwilling to do that, then you'll never grow as a person. And it took me a long time to realize that there was a lot of um, self-destructive behaviors and traumas and things that I just didn't want to deal with, or couldn't deal with, that when the time came and I had to deal with them, and I forced myself to be alone in the dark, to use your vernacular. Um, I faced the demons and came out stronger. I know who I am as a person, um, and I think that's important for everyone to do at some point in their life. And I try and tell that to my son. Be who you want to be. Whatever people tell you, challenge it, question it, um, and then make your determination after a lot of research. Because I don't want him to be 35 years old and have to go through that process. Let him get it out of the way if he can as soon as possible. So
Yeah. Well, I'm going to flip what I said on its head before I move on to whatever else. So I'm just going to take everything I said and throw it out the window. Um, it is important, I think, to know who you are to you, and to get personal. Maybe I can get some of your personal perspective as well. I mean, there's a reason that this is Fathers Anonymous. There's a reason that we're talking tonight, beyond just the high level overview. And for the most part, I reckon we'll keep it that way. But um, when you were talking about like the expectations of society, I thought, well, instantly, you know, pop culture or just societal culture today, there's the male privilege thing. Like that's a conversation in and of itself. But society has already decided for you who you are in some regard. And there is truth in saying that you know who you are is relative or subjective. I mean, you might be father, right? Like you could be father, you're a father, but that's not who you are to your son. Like you're or who I'm getting it mixed up. But you see what I'm saying? Like you're a father to son, and you know like but you're a son, so your frame of reference is different than someone else's. Or you might be husband, you might be wife. You don't get to determine for everyone else who you are to them. And that's challenging. And especially I imagine for some of the guys that might eventually listen or hear to this, like because they're going through maybe court battles and they're getting told who they are. And it doesn't necessarily matter if it's true or not. Like they don't get to decide. They're being told who they are, and that's just who they are to someone else. And so I think that's an interesting um, thought to ponder. But again, when you're alone in the dark, it's important to know who you are. And I guess a final thought, and then I'm curious to hear what you think about all of this. When I went through my divorce, when I started my separation, it took me a while to finally like myself again. And I had actually lost myself. um, I think a lot of guys can relate to that, where they maybe put off the things that they like to do. Like I was an avid musician back home, and by the time it was my divorce, I had pretty much sold every piece of gear that I had. um, I wasn't doing that anymore. And all of these hobbies that I had were forfeit. You know, I gave up a lot to be husband and father, and here I was on the other side of it, um, starting to lose that title, in both regards. And you know, here I am lost. Like I don't have anything that I like to do anymore. Um, like people would ask me, "Oh, what do you like to do for fun?" And it's like, "Fun? Like what's that? Like I don't know. What do you mean? What do I like to do for fun? I go to work, I get money, I put food on the table, I go to sleep, I do it all over again." You know, like, and it took a long time for me to, like you said, like find myself, like after all of the noise, um, to be able to say, you know what, I like me, and that's okay. So anyway, that was my thought when you were saying that. What's your take on all of that?
You know, the speed in which we find ourselves is it's different for everybody, right? I agree that, you know, when we get into that family life, that social norm family life, you know, you have family friends, and family friends always pick a side, right? When your family ends, the friends pick a side, and it's unfortunate that that has to happen. Um, you know, I grew up in a time where it was, you know, you got beat up if you were a nerd, right? But now look at all the nerds, right? They're the ones kind of making all the big money and stuff like that. I've got swords behind me. I didn't I didn't feel like I was comfortable enough in myself because of going through the early childhood and schooling time frame where I could be myself. And that goes to the social programming. You know, now I try and teach my son. He's really big into dragons. You know, I got this shirt that says "Play outside." It's got a dragon playing with some men outside, right? Some knights. You know, because I want him to play outside and I want him to use his imagination, and that's something that I grew up as I grew up without a father for probably 9 years, 9, 10 years. Um, my dad put my mom, me, and my sister on a plane to California and said, "Hey, I'll be out there in a few weeks." And I was about, I don't know, 5, 6 months old. Never saw him again. Um, so my mom was a single mom and going through this whole stuff. I didn't really have a lot of positive male role models growing her up, so I kind of grew up as a mama's boy and kind of a sissy. Um, and so that, you know, I it kind of hurt, like the way I fathered my child is because of what happened to me during that time frame. Like I see the inadequacies and the void that was left at that point in time, the traumas that I was subjected to, unbeknownst to any of the adults, the traumas that happened. You know, I'm very cognizant of that around my son. We have a very open relationship where he talks to me about everything. Um, you know, I don't know if you know this, but I was informed of this today, David, that you know those little like action figures that come pre-packaged with parachutes, right? You can throw them up in the air and they parachute down, right?
Yeah, like the old school, like army paratroopers or whatever.
Yeah. So I was informed that those are a hot commodity on the black market. I was told that by my son. So you know, that you know, inventiveness and that mindset is he told me that today. It was cracked me up. I'm like, how do you even know what the black market is? And you think it's so trivial that they would have little, you know, parachuting, you know, GI Joes, if you will, that would be the hottest commodity, you know. And it shows a frame of reference that, you know, he's not thinking about bigger world issues, you know, because he's safe and he feels secure, and he has that freedom to delve into that that imagination. I didn't really have that, so I grew up, like I said, you know, around all women, an older sister, um, didn't really have any guy relatives anywhere. I was the smallest kid that anybody could ever, of my grade and probably the grade below me. So I was always getting beat up and picked on and all this other stuff. I was smart. I was actually one of the smartest kids in, at the time, of that age group. But, I was always, being subjected to stuff that is very damaging to a person and their self-esteem. And so, like I said, it took me a long time. When I joined the Marines, a lot of it was just an attempt to go out there and just, end it. And I think the Marines do a really good job of picking, of identifying damaged individuals and kind of reprogramming them for a purpose. And so, I went and did that, and, I've been to the wall ever since as far as fears and inadequacies. I'll hit them head on. I'm afraid of heights, yet I climb telephone poles. I'm afraid of the ocean. You got to go scuba diving. I'm afraid of the dark, but I still try and go out in the dark. So I mean, all these things, try and meet my fears head on, and in doing so, it allowed me to analyze who I was, and to set for myself who I wanted to be, and not be who others wanted me to be, and to create for myself my own life. And Gandhi said it: be the change you wish to see in the world. And that's kind of what the mantra that I've taken is don't let anybody dictate who you're going to be. And it goes to even the during the custody battle, when that started happening. It was a very traumatic time, and I would say probably the first month and a half, I still kind of had that naivety of, oh, the courts will never do that. The courts are just, and the courts are righteous, and the Constitution, blah 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 blah. And I got angry when they weren't doing what I had wanted them to do, and so I had to analyze the situation and understand the emotions that I was going through. And I was able to look at it and say, no matter what happens in the court system, no matter how another person that's party to a case may act, if it's contrary to our beliefs of what is just and what is right, then it's the system that's to blame. Because if the system did not allow that to happen, no one would take that road, because they'd be instantaneously corrected on that. And knowing that helped me get through the heartache of the custody battle and the court battle. And it was rough for the first couple of years, because I was one-sided. It was very one-sided as far as this approach of like, it's our son, our child. Let's work together for the sake of our child. And eventually it came, to where it evened out, and, the other party got on board with that concept. But even after that, it was still kind of hectic as far as like, whatever emotion was going on in that day, I had to deal with the repercussions of that. I stood my ground when I needed to stand my ground, but even when it's, even when there's hardships on that end, if I have to sacrifice a little bit to help out with that hardship, like maybe the car broke down, or they're sick, or they, hurt themselves and they need someone to go pick, kids up from school, even though it's not my day and it's an inconvenience to me. What would be better, to leave my kid there out of spite and be like, haha, your other parent can't do this? Or to say, hey, let me go pick up my kids so they're not left at school. Or, I'll take them to baseball practice or football practice or whatever it is. Yeah, it's an inconvenience to me, but it makes their childhood better. And I try and look at that, because a lot of the younger childhood experiences that I had were not that. It was very fend for yourself. And I didn't really feel like I had a strong support system. And so I tried and to remember that, so whenever anything happens like that, I can be there for my son no matter what, and be there for his mother, because if her life is easier, then his life is easier. Um, and she tries to do the same with me when she can. Like when I had the run, right? She had to keep him for an extra week. It may have pushed her, maybe she had something going on, but she still did, and she still let him call me, all the time, because he was worried about all the, the hype around it. And so, that was, possibly an inconvenience to her, but she did it because, it's important to our son. So, um, if I were to adhere to what society wanted me to be, then I would be this angry man, just pissed off at the system, um, or I would be stoic and non-responsive, and just I'd shut up and pay my child support or whatever. I would fall into that narrative, but understanding who I needed to be the best person, regardless of the outcome, um, I think has actually helped my son in the long run learn how to navigate some of those harder points in life.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear a few lessons in there to sum up. Right now, if you're going through something, it's hard. There, you're looking at two guys that know about it, and I'll share my story some other time. But I've got my own story, and believe me, like I understand. Joe understands, and if you can continue to stay the course and think about the bigger picture and the bigger purpose, at all attempts, and sometimes you're going to fail, and that's okay. Try again tomorrow. um, but I mean, Joe, I think if you would have been adversarial from the start and then stayed that way, um, that you probably wouldn't have gotten those phone calls while you were sick. And so I think the one of the lessons I hear in that is that, if you can remain, true in being who you need to be for your child, and trying to make a compromise and meet that person where they're at respectfully and also with your own boundaries, um, it can pay off in the end. And I think Joe is an example of that. Um, so Joe, I you said something, and I think it will actually be a segue into the next question that I had for you. I didn't know that about your childhood. I did not know that, you hadn't seen your dad for the first decade of your life. So that's news to me. So that I'm this is cool. Go ahead.
Point of clarification: I still have not. Um, so my mom ended up meeting a good man, and they ended up getting married. And after a time, because we had no idea where my biological father was, um, and at that point, I was early teenager. He asked if I would like to be adopted, and I said yes. Again, it goes into choosing who I want to be as well. I chose to. He asked my permission, and I made a determination at that point to say yes, and cut ties with the past. I think it was the first real stepping stone.
How old were you?
When I was adopted,
Yeah.
um, 13, 14, maybe.
Hmm.
Somewhere around there. I don't know. I've got a birth certificate that says it, because that was a legal name change. But yeah, I mean, I tried not to think about it at all. But it's kind of hard when the demons come knocking at the door at night, of all the things that that you went through without that shepherd, if you will, without the guardian at the door. Um, as that, I kind of, I don't know the right way to say it, but as a child, you need someone to look out and protect you, and that's what the father's role is. We're supposed to be the guardians. We're supposed to keep the wolf from the door, right? Keep the wolf out of the fox out of the hen house, whatever it is, that whatever analogy you want to use. Um, I didn't have that, and so there were a lot of times there were wolves and there were foxes that were running around, and there's scars that happen. Um, and so I tried to put it all behind me when that happened, and um, I thought I did a fairly good job of it. And then all of a sudden, someone reached out to my sister, and someone from his family reached out to my sister and my mom, and they eventually reached out to me, and I got to talk with them about it. And they had pretty much, there's some people that are so jaded that are gonna think that my mom alienated me or whatever it was. Um, and I'm here to say, no, I've heard from that side of the family that said, no, this is what happened. And they felt for my mom, and they still do. And they're horrified at the way my biological father, was. Um, and so I kind of had that, conversation, and it kind of helped a little bit. And then all of a sudden I get a Facebook friend request, um, from my biological father and his son, which I've never met. So there's the other aspect is like, I'm the firstborn son, but he wanted nothing to do with me. And then, it raises up all this other issues. Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Where, why didn't he want to be in my life? Why, all this other stuff that just like terrorizes a young boy and a young man. And still I have problems with it today. Um, that, I can't, it's something I need to deal with. And potentially, the way I look at it is, he wants to, he missed all the hard stuff. And now he wants to come in and, take some moments and take some joy in my greatest treasure, which is my son. And I guard that, that's a closely guarded treasure of mine, that he doesn't get that. He doesn't get that. And there's still some venom there. I mean, you can see it. He doesn't get it. He doesn't get to come in here and see the good things that have happened in my life, because he wasn't there for the bad. Um, and there may come a point in time where I have to open that door just at least to get it off my chest. Because even still now, talking about it, thinking about it, there's still a venom, and there's still some heat there. And justifiably so. I mean, looking at it from a logical perspective of all the trauma that I've been dealing with, I justifiably, those feelings are legit, and I don't want anyone else to discredit them, and I don't want to discredit them myself. Right? I don't want to say, oh well, man up and get over it. Stop being a little girl about it. I have to acknowledge that they're legit and real feelings, and I try and analyze that, and it paralyzes me sometimes, around with my son. There's sometimes where I feel like I'm not being a good enough father, right? Or all these other things, there's that self-doubt that creeps in. Um, so it's hard. It's really, really hard to deal with. Um, so yeah, I just, point of clarification.
Yeah. No. Well. Yeah. I mean, that makes me think of a lot of other things too, and perhaps I shouldn't delve into them too deep. Um, I guess I would just say that I think that our walks are all different, and I have seen, and this might touch into another question that I have a little later, but I've my heart hurts when I see division in and amongst dads, guys, you know, fathers, and all of the advocacy stuff. And I just go back to thinking that people that are hurting tend to hurt other people. It's like like the cup runneth over, and it's like, well, whatever's in that cup is spilling out, and if it's bad, then that's what's spilling out. And um, it certainly is. It's easier to give that hurt to other people, and transfer that. And so I don't know. I hope that whatever you do, you find some peace there. I think it's not my place. There could be benefit to a relationship. Maybe your son's like, I wish I had known my uncle or whatever else, and maybe he's better off for not. Like, who am I to say? Um, Boy, I have some interesting stories there, but I'm not going to get into that. Um, but I also have some childhood trauma, and I relate to you, um, when you kind of call back on those memories, and you're like wrestling demons and being a father today. Um, and the one thing that I have to sometimes tell myself when I have these thoughts or feelings, and then I'm like repulsed that I had those thoughts or feelings, is I have to realize that, not all of those did I put here. Like, they were put here by someone else. And even the absence of someone can mean that they put these thoughts, because if you don't have someone speaking, you know, life into you, like, I'm proud of you, son, like you did well, or whatever else. If you don't have that, like, well, they may as well have told you you weren't worth it. Um, so I hear that. Um, yeah, I guess I'll jump into I'll well, no, I wanted to say this. Um, I find it really interesting, um, that you say that. I have a similar situation. I have a daughter that I inherited whose father wants nothing to do with her. I've talked with him. I've talked with his family. The guy just doesn't want anything to do with her. Um, and as a father who can't see his own kids, that's devastating to me. I think, how dare you? Like, and it hurts, and I hurt for her, although she is not really aware of any of this stuff. I think that, though I'm not perfect, she's satisfied that she has a loving father, and that's what you came to have as well. And so that, family can be who you make it. Um, but to bring it to the point that I want to make is, I find it interesting that both you and I, um, who volunteer with Fathers Anonymous, we have a unique perspective, when it comes to, alienation, or, you know what a good father should be, and also like single mothers. I and I know you have as well, have seen a lot of disparaging, comments towards just all women. And the reality is, case in point, your mom was doing what she could do. She was trying to survive, whatever that looks like. And then you got to hear later on in life the truth of it. And it was that, no, your dad was not that great, apparently. And your mom was doing what she had to do. And too often, um, fathers in the community that are hurting, their cup is running over, and they're just like, all women, blah, blah, blah. And I think that this is the perfect conversation to have right now. Like, one of the first videos that we're going to put out there is like an interview for posterity's sake. When the time comes and people are like, oh, they hate all women, and they just are misogynist and blah blah blah. It's like, no, no, we understand. It's about equity. It's about equality. It's not that I hate women. Like, you seem to have had a great mother. And so, but it's an interesting point to make, because there's a lot of opposition to us, to what we're proposing, like a rebuttable presumption of shared parenting, that both mom and dad get equal shared parenting. That's the presumption at the beginning, that we're just trying to destroy women and all of that stuff. And it's like, it's not like that.